Part 82. Weird Star Witch. Author, White Silver Black Iron. Chapter 812. Several I-beams more than 1 meter long were welded into multifaceted spikes as tall as a person. The spikes were sharpened and shone with cold light. If the warhorse rushed directly, the thorns would pierce the chest and heart. Jennifer swung the sword, slashed out the air wave, and knocked the thorns of the barricade in front of her away. However, the sound of iron chains rang in the air. This was not the sound of the knight guarding the chain, but the sound of real chains. There was actually an iron chain under the multifaceted thorns. Under the pull of the iron chain, the multifaceted thorns that were knocked away rebounded and hit the knight. These iron chains are made of high-level alchemical metals, and ordinary knights cannot break these alchemical iron chains. Alchemists make those seemingly ordinary materials indestructible. They are all masters of materials. As a last resort, Jennifer increased the extraction, allowing her level to rise and exert the combat power of a level 6 knight. The attack power of the level 6 apostle finally broke the multifaceted thorns. She has such strength, and knights in other places may not be so lucky. Some of the multifaceted thorns killed the war horses, hit the charging cavalry, and knocked the knights off their horses. In the chaos caused by the chevaux de frise, shells fell from the sky. In the wars with the alchemists, the knights summed up many rules. The most important one is to take down the alchemists' artillery position as soon as possible. On the low slope on the side of Fontaine Town, cannons were neatly arranged and spewed shells. Jennifer turned her head and saw the movement of the royal flag. His Majesty the King led the royal knights to rush out from the side and detour to the artillery position. As long as they hold on for a while, they can wait until King Lothair XI solves the artillery position and eliminates the biggest threat to the knights. After smashing 2 chevaux de frise, Jennifer waved her sword and shouted to charge. The knights behind her followed her steps and sped up. Behind the chevaux de frise, there is a minefield. The constitutional army gave up so many cities just to build fortifications here. When the mines exploded, the knights felt deeply the suppression from the alchemists. These mines are specially designed to attack war horses. Once the horse's hoof steps on the mines, the horse's legs can be blown to pieces. Jennifer was unfortunately knocked over by the mines. She quickly got up and jumped onto the spare war horse. War horses are so precious, but in front of this mine array, they have become disposable consumables. Rushing through the mine array, you can see trenches, in which the infantry of the constitutional army lie. Between the infantry is the machine gun position of the alchemist. The machine gun tilted to shoot to the side and front, forming a crossfire with other machine guns. The firing rate of the machine gun is so fast that one round of alchemical bullets forms a dense fire network on the battlefield. The airship of the constitutional army is in place at this time, and together with the artillery position, it drops bombs one by one on the knights. Alchemists like to say that knights are apostles destined to be eliminated. The times are progressing, and no apostle can resist the torrent of productivity brought by alchemists. Jennifer hadn't killed a single constitutionalist yet, and she found that the limit power behind her was shrinking rapidly. Her knights were dying, and the alchemist's metal storm was harvesting her knights. According to the rehearsal before the battle, after the battle began, the Royal Midnight Knights would crush the constitutionalist center formation like a whirlwind, and the other knights would follow closely and start chasing. Jennifer turned her head and glanced at the center of the battlefield. The powerful strength of the Seraph Angels dragged down Emperor Megwen with repeated deaths. The center formation of the Knights Alliance not only did not become a strong point, but fell behind. Too strong, as a Scorpio wizard, Rudolph's strength is too strong. Jennifer looked around, but she didn't see Yvonne. According to the intelligence, Yvonne became a level 9 werewolf. The uniqueness of the level 9 werewolf and the uniqueness of the level 9 Scorpio wizard can be perfectly matched to increase the strength of the two of them. In other words, even in the direction of the center formation, the constitutional alliance has not yet shown its strongest strength. Not knowing where Ivan had gone, Jennifer wanted to see Ivan's current demeanor, but she also thought it would be good not to see Ivan, lest she become jealous. At this time, in the far south, outside the iron wall of the Eagle's Beak Peninsula, Ivan was looking at the iron wall. Next to her was the level 9 druid Neof. The two women were so dazzling. As level 9 apostles, they were the pillars here. How could the evil god cult miss the civil strife in the northern continent, and behind the iron wall, dark clouds were gathering. The expeditionary force led by the Pope last time was defeated by the furnace and the level 9 alchemical nuclear bomb. This time, the evil god came in person. The Oblivion Church, which built Belfour City as a temple, came out in full force, and the evil god Oblivion came to the iron wall in person. The evil god Oblivion, the Lord of Nothingness, the Master of the Abyss, was most compatible with the power of destruction, and he was the main force in this fight for the power of destruction. Except for the Church of Oblivion, other churches, like last time, sent out high-ranking officials such as the Pope and cardinal priests, and formed a coalition with newly infused priests. The dark cloud slowly rotated, and eventually turned into 12 cantilevers, forming a dark cloud spiral. In the dark cloud cantilever, tentacles occasionally could not be wrapped by the dark clouds and were exposed. The evil god Oblivion appeared. Archdruid Neof turned his head and looked at Ivan. In other words, Mr. Furnace is now fighting with Emperor Mogwen, and he will come over to deal with the evil god Oblivion. Ivan nodded. The knights are determined to unify the northern continent first, and they do not accept negotiations. You are really difficult, Mr. Furnace is really difficult. Joel, who was behind the two of them, couldn't help but nod. He also felt it was really difficult. Joel completed the level 9 alchemy experiment, and he became a level 9 alchemist. There were 2 female level 9 apostles, and no one paid attention to him. In addition to being the commander-in-chief of the constitutional forces, Joel also serves as the commander of the Elba missile force. He bowed and said, "Miss Yvonne, Your Majesty, everything is ready." He respected Yvonne so much, and that respect came from Mr. Furnace. It was Mr. Furnace who helped him complete the alchemy experiment, and it was also Mr. Furnace who was working hard to fight against Elba's enemies and the evil cult. Yvonne nodded. She first looked at the commander of the airship force, Hit, and asked, "Hit, you are from the Eagle's Mouth Peninsula. Will the soldiers from the Eagle's Mouth Peninsula accept the next attack plan?" "Your Majesty the Queen, there is no longer the Eagle's Beak Peninsula. The Eagle's Beak Peninsula only exists in our memories. The evil god should be buried with the Eagle's Beak Peninsula. We will only be happy." Yvonne nodded. "Okay, let's get started and let the destruction come." Yvonne was about to input the power of the Apostle into the star-condensing dragon scale and summon Rudolph. However, she suddenly turned around and discovered that Rudolph had appeared directly out of thin air and did not appear in front of dragon scales. Yvonne, who was very familiar with Rudolph, discovered that Rudolph was using the southern constellation to return. His face still showed the tension and fear of facing mortal danger. Rudolph wiped the sweat from his face, feeling lingering fear. The enraged Emperor Mogwen teamed up with the Ares wizard Melis and killed Rudolph, over and over again. Joel came forward and asked, "Mr. Consultant, how is the situation in the north?" Rudolph shook his head. "The war has entered the second stage." When Joel heard this, he fell silent. The so-called second stage means that Carolyn has no other choice. Even if the knights have 2 alchemical nuclear bombs, they will throw their own alchemical nuclear bombs. The city of Evelyn will be destroyed by a nuclear bomb. Destruction will come to the city of Evelyn. Rudolph looked at the swirling dark clouds in the sky and said, "We're going to start." Weird Star Witch. Author, White Silver Black Iron. Chapter 813. The Seraph Angel appeared in the air, and Rudolph floated above the seraph angel, looking at the coalition of the evil god cult in the distance. Ivan transformed into a level 9 white wolf, and above the white wolf, a grey wolf head appeared. The bone erosion and the ancient beast soul cooperated again. Under the stimulation of hatred and the release of animal nature, the momentum of the seraph angel became stronger and stronger. The druid Neophu couldn't help but look sideways. Is this the source of the confidence of the furnace to fight against the evil god cult? The two level 9 uniquenesses are so compatible, providing the seraph angel with two amplifications, making the seraph angel's strength infinitely close to the limit of the level 9 apostle. Neophu has never seen a level 9 Knight Emperor, but even if the Knight Emperor is here, he dare not say that he can easily deal with such a seraph angel. Without any hesitation, the seraph angel rushed towards the evil god Annihilation. The evil god holds some kind of pseudo-authority, which is extremely powerful. The vortex of the dark cloud suddenly vibrated, and the dark cloud collapsed, revealing the tentacles inside. 12 thick octopus tentacles, each of which is hundreds of meters long and more than 10 meters thick. The tentacles are covered with suction cups, which are black hole vortexes. Once caught by the tentacles, the suction cup vortex can completely crush the target. In the center of the tentacle is a meatball with a vertical eye on it. The vertical eye reflects the red figure of the seraphim angel. The 6 tentacles suddenly stabbed down and stabbed the seraphim angel. The blood-red giant sword swung, and the powerful force directly cut off 3 tentacles. The seraphim angel can hold out for a while in front of the 9th level Knight Emperor. This strength is something that the evil god has to deal with all his strength. The remaining 3 tentacles captured the seraphim angel, and the tentacles rotated, trying to crush the seraphim angel with the tiny vortex on the suction cup, but were blocked by the seraphim angel's 6 wings. The black hole vortex on the tentacle suction cup confronted the red 6 wings, and for a moment the black vortex collapsed and the feathers on the 6 wings were broken. This also gave the seraphim angel the opportunity to swing the second sword. The blood-red giant sword passed, and the 3 tentacles were also cut off. On the meatball, the tentacles continued to stretch, and the cut tentacles quickly recovered their original length. The evil god Annihilation had to lower more tentacles to deal with the seraph angel. Tentacles were cut off and fell to the ground. Some weak-willed Annihilation priests knelt on the ground and cried, praying to the evil god Annihilation in the sky, hoping to contribute their meager faith. The Annihilation Church brought almost all the priests and believers in the southern continent. At this time, every city on the Eagle's Beak Peninsula had priests and believers kneeling on the ground praying. In the sky, the red angel and the 12 tentacles were entangled. The giant sword was swung, and each sword could cut off 1 or 2 tentacles. At the connection in the center of the 12 cantilevered tentacles, the huge vertical eye stared at the seraph angel. The furnace actually had a combat power comparable to that of the evil god's body, and a cold light flashed in the evil god Annihilation's eyeball. While the seraphim was fighting with several tentacles, Annihilation extended 4 more tentacles, 2 of which were upward and 2 downward. Between the tentacles, a black abyss appeared. A canyon appeared in the sky, a vertical canyon. The canyon was bordered by the tentacles, and inside the canyon was a dark abyss. Rudolph suddenly felt a strong suction force, and the seraphim and he fell uncontrollably into the abyss. The uniqueness of the evil god Annihilation, or part of the authority, the endless abyss. The moment he saw the abyss, Rudolph could no longer look away. Staring into the abyss, his consciousness sank first. Rudolph's consciousness entered a dark space, with endless darkness to the left and right. The seraphim began to accelerate and fell into the abyss. Archdruid Neophu saw the scene and knew that it was time for her to take action. She waved the oak staff, and a big tree broke out of the ground and opened its huge crown. The legendary world tree, the spiritual sustenance of the druids. The crown of the world tree is hundreds of meters in diameter and hundreds of meters in height, forming a huge umbrella. Vines hang on the trunk, and these vines shoot out, instantly entangle the Seraph and Rudolph. In the dark world, Rudolph's consciousness suddenly saw a green light. He swam towards the green light, and when he touched the green light, he woke up. The vines were wrapped around his shoulders, and there was a handful of leaves in front of him. He looked back at the druid Neofa with gratitude. He wanted to break through the endless abyss alone, and he needed to use his trump card. With the help of the druid, he could put the trump card behind to increase the suddenness of the trump card. Seeing that the first move was cracked, the suction of the endless abyss disappeared, and on the contrary, the endless abyss suddenly began to spew out a terrifying breath. Several huge monsters suddenly rushed out of the endless abyss. Temple. The temple of the southern continent is hidden in the endless abyss. 100-meter-high pyramid emitting white light, after falling heavily to the ground, all the brick joints on the pyramid emitted dazzling light, and a dazzling light bead appeared on the top of the pyramid. An active volcano spewing thick smoke directly hit the volcano created by the Kundan church here. Compared with the temple active volcano here seems much smaller. After the temple volcano landed, it directly borrowed the magma of the temple volcano, extracted the magma from the ground, and poured it into the temple volcano. A pool of gelatinous mud pus mixture flowed out from the endless abyss, and then quickly formed a green, smelly pus swamp on the ground. The center of the pus swamp bulged, and a huge tumor appeared in the swamp. Countless insects flew out of the endless black abyss, covering the sky and the sun. These insects gathered on the ground and turned into pillars. Those pillars that were more than 10 meters thick were made of insects. In the center of the insect pillar forest, the insects gathered into the shape of a spider. 5 temples. On the side of Zirba, there were 4 level 9 apostles, the Furnace, Neoph, Ivan, and Joel, while on the side of the southern continent evil god cult, the 5 evil gods came with the temples. After the evil god Annihilation found that he could not defeat the Furnace quickly, he decisively took the next tactic and let the 5 evil gods come. In addition to the evil god Fraud who wandered like a ghost and the evil god Abstinence who had little combat power, Annihilation, White Magic, Trapped, Insect Nest and Pain, these 5 evil gods came to the northernmost tip of the Eagle's Beak Peninsula, vowing to solve the Furnace here and solve the last living force of Zirba. The great druid Neoph looked at several huge temples with a serious expression. So the war in the northern continent is so fierce. She had lived in the distant oak forest for a long time and didn't know that the battle here had become like this. She had just arrived and saw the 5 evil gods. This was the configuration of the flank battlefield of the Holy War more than 2,000 years ago. In the Exorcism Holy War, the main battlefield belonged to the evil god Killing and the Night Emperor Alec, while the flank battlefield was dominated by several evil gods. Neoph looked back and saw that there was no support from the entire continent behind her. There were only airships, only Elba's airship. Elba's infantry and artillery were all supported by Carolingian, and now only the airship troops participated in the war. You must know that more than 2,000 years ago, werewolves and vampires stood behind Emperor Megwen to provide the knights with extreme strength. Relying on half of Elba's power, plus a few level 9 apostles, are they going to fight against the evil god cult? You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Weird Star Witch. Author, White Silver Black Iron. Chapter 814. In the black night sky, the blood-red figure of the Seraph Angel stood in the middle, separating the evil god and the Constitution army. Most of the evil god's terrifying aura was blocked by the Seraph Angel, but many soldiers on the Constitution army airship still couldn't stop trembling. The 5 evil gods lined up in a fan shape, surrounding the Constitution army. It was too terrifying. The evil god by Mo was in the light bead, and the light was so white that it was creepy. When it shone on people, it made them look like dead bodies. The evil god was hiding in the abyss, and there was only a deep abyss in the sky that went through the sky and the earth. The grass, trees, mountains, and rocks near the abyss were slowly drifting towards the abyss. There was a bottomless pit, a real bottomless pit. The evil god's painful pus swamp rolled, and the stench quickly entered people's nostrils, making people unable to help but vomit in their stomachs. The insect cloud of the evil god's insect nest expanded into a hemisphere, covering a mountain. Groups of insects flew together, making a low buzzing sound. Even from a distance, I could feel something crawling in my bones. The crater where the evil god was trapped was spewing thick smoke, and the inside of the volcano was rumbling, accumulating some terrible power. The priests on the battlefield knelt on the ground, and outside every temple on the Eagle's Beak Peninsula, there were also priests and believers kneeling. The power of faith generated by the prayers of all priests and believers was bestowed on the evil god, making the evil god extremely powerful. No one dared to breathe, and everyone was terrified. The seraph angel suddenly spread his 6 wings, and Rudolph above his head pointed his scepter to the sky. In the starry sky, 14 bright stars in Scorpio suddenly shone. No matter what light the 14 bright stars originally had, they were all emitting red light at this moment. Rudolph tried his best to release a forbidden spell, Bone Erosion Revenge, to all the evil gods and priests. The evil gods could not see any changes, but the priests on the ground became restless. Under each evil god, there were tens of thousands of priests kneeling, and these priests were praying devoutly. In such a battle, the fighting power of the priests can be ignored. They prayed peacefully and contributed the power of faith to the Lord God. When the bone-eating hatred enveloped them, the priests put down their praying hands one by one, looked at the Scorpio in the starry sky in confusion, and then looked at the priests around them. Hatred grew in the hearts of the priests. The evil god Pain felt the hatred of the Scorpio wizard the most deeply, and he was the first to react. The pus swamp rolled, the pus bubbles burst, and the purple or black pus fell on all the priests like raindrops. These pus raindrops were like strong acid. After splashing on the priests' clothes and skin were corroded instantly, and blood holes appeared on their flesh. The pus drilled into their flesh and blood, bringing the priests' heart-piercing pain. Under the effect of pain, the hatred in the hearts of the priests was reduced a lot and replaced by pain. Like the evil god Pain, other evil gods attacked their own priests one after another. When fighting against the Scorpio wizard furnace, you must first resolve the hatred star power, otherwise your own faith power divine power system will collapse and fail to operate. The evil god White Devil directly shone a beam of light on his priest, burning the priest's clothes and emitting green smoke. The evil god Insect Nest directly let its insects drill into the priest's ears and control the priest in the brain. The evil gods reacted very quickly and gave priority to controlling their respective priests. Rudolph seized this opportunity and the seraph angel rushed directly to the evil gods. Each evil god seemed to have a mighty power that could reach the sky and the earth, which made people's scalps numb. The Lion King starfire fell from the sky, and the surging pure blue flames rushed towards all the evil gods and priests. The evil god Kundan was the first to recover from the chaos. His temple volcano spewed out surging magma and rushed towards the blue starfire from bottom to top. If Rudolph faced any evil god, he would be confident that he would not lose. If he faces 2 evil gods, he can at least hold out for a long time, with both back and forth. However, there are 5 evil gods in front of him, and these evil gods have division of labor. The scale of the evil god's painful pus rain is getting bigger and bigger, until it covers a battlefield of more than 10 kilometers, using pain to drive away hatred and stabilize the faith of various churches. The evil god White Devil is responsible for interfering with Rudolph, the evil god Annihilation is responsible for restricting Rudolph's actions, and the evil god Kundan is responsible for the main attack. There is also the evil god Insect Nest. He did not attack Rudolph, but spread a large number of insect clouds, passing the seraph angel from both sides, attacking Rudolph's rear, using the Constitution Army in the rear as a threat, involving Rudolph's energy. Everything is so unfavorable to Rudolph. After turning around and giving the insect swarm a wide range of Lion King sparks, Rudolph rushed towards the evil god Kundan. Since the evil god Kundan is responsible for the main attack, then first knock out the evil god Kundan's strong point and disrupt the evil god cult's plan. Behind the iron wall, the blue of the starfire and the orange of the magma covered everything, and nothing could be seen. The great druid Neoph flew into the air, and she waved her hand to signal all the druids to come forward. The starfire and the magma collided, and the violent air waves carried the heat that devoured people, blowing the druids all over. The aftermath of the battle between the evil god and the scorpion wizard caused the heat waves to steam far away on the north side of the iron wall. United with the scourge. Get ready. This time Neoph brought thousands of druids, all of whom were level 6 and above. With Neoph as the leader, all druids began to cast druid spells. Natural Scourge, Earthquake. This is a natural disaster mastered by a level 6 druid. Druids can use the power of nature to simulate natural disasters, release the stress between the underground rock layers, and cause earthquakes. Especially the joint efforts of thousands of high-level druids, under the command of the great druid Neoph, a huge natural force surged into the ground and sank into the rock layer. Pain, who had the least combat pressure and was farthest from the Scorpio wizard's furnace, glanced in the direction of Neoph. He thought Neoph was going to deal with the iron wall of trapped, so he didn't take the druid's actions seriously. What's the use of collapsing the iron wall of trapped? The constitutional army didn't have many ground troops. However, Neoph's eyes were full of spirit. After she came to Malvern, the parliament appointed her the most authoritative geological alchemist, who was an expert in studying earthquakes and continental plate movements. According to the research of the geological alchemist, the Eagle's Beak Peninsula is the junction of the northern continental plate and the Sarago Sea Plate, and is in an extremely unstable state. There have been no earthquakes in the Eagle's Beak Peninsula in recent years, but in the previous decades and hundreds of years, the frequency of earthquakes in the Eagle's Beak Peninsula was very high and the earthquakes were also very strong. Only a little external force is needed to stimulate these two plates, release the energy accumulated in the strata, and create a terrible earthquake in the Eagle's Beak Peninsula. After Neoph used her roots to sense the energy in the strata, she confirmed that the geological alchemist's statement was correct. She was confident that she could create a super earthquake in the Eagle's Beak Peninsula. Destruction, this is the trigger of destruction. Several evil gods have descended, and now many priests and believers are crowded in the Eagle's Beak Peninsula. Neoph glanced at the back of the seraph angel. The furnace has a very cruel heart. He wants to take the initiative to guide the destruction and let the power of destruction appear in the Eagle's Beak Peninsula. The earthquake is just the trigger designed by the furnace. The real destruction comes from Elba's newly promoted 9th level alchemist, Joel, who was promoted to 9th level alchemist through ballistic experiments. Just as Neoph took action, Joel also started to act. Launch. All launch. On the Constitutional Army airship, long-range missiles flew out of the missile silos around Malvern City. These missiles can carry nuclear warheads. Weird Star Witch. Author, White Silver Black Iron. Chapter 815. On the flagship airship where Joel was located, the forward deck was hollowed out and 12 vertical launch silos were transformed. This flagship was specially modified for launching alchemical nuclear missiles. There are only 2 weapons on the flagship, one is a medium and short-range defensive weapon, and the other is an offensive alchemical nuclear missile. The cover of the vertical silo popped open, and thick smoke came out of each silo. After the thick smoke passed, 12 alchemical nuclear missiles rushed out one after another. Joel stood on the bow of the ship and watched the strategic nuclear missile fly towards the Eagle's Beak Peninsula. In the dark night sky, on the airship nearby and on the ground in the distance, there are thousands of red lights spitting out flames. Those are the tail flames of alchemical nuclear missiles. Destruction, complete destruction. The Crucible advisor has said that this is the only way to defeat the cult of evil and the only way to win the war. There is no time to slow down. The foundation of the evil god's religion must be destroyed at once before the evil god can be defeated. At the same time, in the far north, in the Carolingian capital city of Evelyn, the vanguard of the Knight Alliance appeared on the outskirts. The Forge fought with the Knight Emperor several times, and after dying 9 times in the battle, he disappeared. After that, no one could stop Mogwen 9. The strongest person on the alchemist side is the wizard Forge. The Forge is no match for the Knight Emperor and the Ares wizard Melis. These 2 level 9 apostles were already the strongest among the level 9 apostles. They also joined forces to target the furnace, leaving the furnace with no good solution. The great sword of Mogwen 9 swept across and cleared all obstacles in front of him. No matter the horses, trenches, bunkers, or airships suspended in the sky, they could not withstand the sweep of the Knight Emperor. The Royal Knights are under the care of the Ares wizard Melis, and even ordinary knights are no longer weak. With the blessing of war authority, the knights are all high-spirited and rush forward with the blessing of war authority. Looking at the city of Evelyn from a distance, Emperor Mogwen said calmly, "Let's begin and bring the final destruction to Carolingian." Hermes turned his head and signaled to prepare the alchemical nuclear bomb. They obtained 2 alchemical nuclear bombs just for this moment. Alchemists constantly innovate when it comes to killing efficiency. Gunpowder witchcraft has greatly improved the efficiency of killing people on the battlefield. Now they have developed alchemy nuclear bombs, which further improves the killing efficiency. In Evelyn City, level 9 alchemist Nicholas listened to the last military meeting. "I just regret that he is a scientific research alchemist with no fighting ability. In this battle that determines the fate of the alchemist, he can't contribute much." In the final military meeting, the Alchemical Alliance decided to throw all alchemical nuclear bombs at the Knight Alliance. Nicholas discovered that the top brass of the Constitutional Army were crazy, and that they had all lost their minds since the Forge left. Despair, madness is a byproduct of despair. The furnace has not returned for so long, which proves that the cult of evil has also launched a general attack on Elba. The furnace could find time to delay Mogwen 9 before the decisive battle with the evil god cult, which was as far as it could go. I wonder how Elba is doing in the south, and I wonder if the cult of evil is as aggressive as the Royal Knights. Both the knight and the alchemist lost their minds and their eyes were red. Only Nicholas remained clear-headed and walked towards the parking lot on the outskirts of the city. In the parking lot, there is an internal combustion engine truck he developed. Furness said that those trucks with internal combustion engines could determine the direction of the continent. The parking lot was built next to the shelter, and the shelter was packed with people. The alchemical nuclear bomb is coming, and the shelter has no radiation protection capabilities. When the alchemical nuclear bomb is dropped, the knights will retreat a certain distance to avoid being accidentally injured by the alchemical nuclear bomb, which gives Nicholas a chance. Nicholas wanted to take these refugees and leave as soon as possible without any delay. Today's protagonist is the nuclear bomb. In Evelyn City, knights and alchemists throw alchemical nuclear bombs at each other. On the Eagle Beak Peninsula, Joel fired thousands of alchemy nuclear missiles towards the evil god cult. The omniscient scroll was right, the alchemical nuclear bomb contained the power of destruction. Rudolph faced the siege of several evil gods and gradually became exhausted. If there were only 3 evil gods, Rudolph would really be confident that he could carry them through. Evil god Pain disrupted Rudolph's rhythm. Evil god Pain actually left the battle and concentrated on maintaining the stability of evil god's faith on the battlefield. Rudolph's strongest method against evil god's cult, the forbidden spell of hatred, had no use. The pain of the evil god can replace the excitement of hatred with extreme pain, allowing the priests to wake up and not be affected by the Scorpio forbidden curse. This would be very cruel to the priest, but at least it would not collapse the belief system of the evil god religion. The alchemical nuclear missile passed over his head, and Rudolph's physical and mental fatigue was swept away. Everything was developing as he expected. The evil god's insect nest noticed the alchemical nuclear missile, and it quickly sent out an insect cloud to try to intercept it in the sky. However, Joel's level 9 missile trajectory change technique is not so easy to intercept. After the insect cloud took off, the evil god insect nest was surprised to find that the huge missiles had excellent evasion performance. After several orbit changes, most of the alchemy nuclear missiles avoided the insect cloud. The alchemy nuclear missiles on the nearby airship were okay and had not climbed up yet. The missiles fired from the fixed launch silos at the rear had already exceeded the radiation range of the evil god's faith of more than 9,000 meters, achieving a dimensionality-reducing blow to the evil god's divine power. The target of these alchemical nuclear missiles is not the evil god. The missile's trajectory was very high, flying directly over the battlefield and flying towards every city in the Huingshui Peninsula. Earthquake plus nuclear bomb, this is the destruction that Rudolph prepared for the evil god cult. At this moment, the evil god fraud finally couldn't calm down. A high priest suddenly got up from the ground and stopped kneeling to the evil god Hive. His face changed and became the appearance of a strange priest. Quick! Kill the furnace! The evil god fraud launched divine magic with all his strength, affecting the battle above. The blood-red giant sword of the Seraph Angel was originally going to hit the artifact of the evil god Kundan, but at the last moment, it inexplicably lost its target. Kundan's iron hammer hit the shoulder of the Seraph Angel hard, knocking the Seraph Angel down from the sky. As the Seraph Angel fell, Rudolph turned his head and looked at the evil god Fraud. That was the evil god Fraud, Rudolph's biggest enemy, the controller of the other half of the omniscient authority. As the seraphim landed, the swarm of insects on the ground wrapped around the seraphim like a tornado. The insects in the evil god's nest could actually devour the seraphim, making it unable to move. The battle with several evil gods just now was too intense, and Rudolph was hit by a beam of light and died instantly. The Crucible has died 9 times in the Eighth Megwen. His number of resurrections is limited. The evil god deceived and became the commander of the evil gods. The other evil gods followed the command, and the battlefield situation was reversed, forcing the Crucible to send the first resurrection. Rudolph frowned and appeared from the sparks. In order to help the Carolingian kingdom, he fought with Megwen 9 for a long time, and used 9 rebirths from the fire. When he returned to the Garan region, he used the return to the past of the Southern Star. Before sunrise, he only had 8 resurrection opportunities left. Facing the evil gods who were fighting with all their strength, Rudolph knew that he had to show all his trump cards. Weird Star Witch. Author, White Silver Black Iron. Chapter 816. The appearance of Fraud made Rudolph very uncomfortable. Before, Rudolph was able to deal with the 5 evil gods because he knew the characteristics of all the evil gods. The Scroll of Omniscience had already told Rudolph everything about their abilities, their magic, and their habitual movements. Before this fight, Rudolph had practiced countless times, and he was confident that he could deal with every evil god. But Fraud was different. Fraud was an information black hole for the Scroll of Omniscience. Rudolph had no idea about Fraud's magic and abilities. When Fraud cooperated with other evil gods, Rudolph's proud insight ability had no place to use. In fact, Rudolph had a feeling that Fraud was very familiar with him. His habits, his witchcraft, his forbidden spells, Fraud knew everything. The red giant sword slashed at the evil god Kundan, but the evil god Kundan did not move because Fraud appeared next to Kundan. Rudolph was in a trance at the last moment, and the target of the giant sword was Fraud, and finally slashed on the air next to Kundan. This trance is fatal and Rudolph cannot resist it. The evil god's fraudulent magic has no direct attack power, but it can confuse Rudolph's attention and judgment. Rudolph has no way to overcome this confusion. The evil god's hammer hit the abdomen of the Seraph Angel hard, knocking the seraph angel to the back. The evil god's insect nest had already arranged an insect cloud in the back, which wrapped the seraph angel, and the insects gnawed the seraph angel. The seraph angel is composed of Scorpio star power, and the evil insects in the mother nest have become disposable consumables. Once they gnaw on the Scorpio star power, they will die immediately. The evil insects used their own death to exchange for the weakness of the seraph angel. Not only that, countless insects drilled into the joints of the red armor. The evil god White Demon saw that the seraph angel could not move, and a beam of light shone directly on Rudolph, completely engulfing Rudolph. Rudolph died for the second time, and then resurrected for the second time. The evil gods found that the furnace had weakened. In other words, the emergence of fraud has targeted the furnace. Neither the seraphic angel nor the forbidden spell can attack the evil god. All attacks will eventually be deceived and automatically change the target. Rudolph was not panicked. He looked up into the distance and looked at the alchemical nuclear missiles going away. The evil god's painful attention was not on the battlefield. He also turned his head to look at the flames going away behind him. He actually felt a little fear in his heart. What would be the effect of thousands of alchemical nuclear bombs exploding together? He didn't wait for the explosion effect, but waited for the earthquake first. After being trapped in the iron wall, the Druids finally completed the joint disaster. The ground began to tremble, and the stones on the ground jumped up from the intersection of the Eagle's Beak Peninsula and the continent, which was the location of the trapped iron wall. The Eagle's Beak Peninsula, as a bulge extending from the continental plate to the Saragosse plate, has been under the compression of the two plates. There are many high mountains on this peninsula, which is the result of plate compression. After being strengthened by the Druids, the Eagle's Beak Peninsula experienced the largest earthquake in history. On the south side of the trapped iron wall, countless priests knelt on the ground, providing the power of faith for the evil god in the night sky. When the earthquake hit, many priests found that they could not stop their bodies from shaking even though they were on all fours and holding the ground tightly with their hands. What was even more terrifying was that cracks appeared on the ground. The irregular appearance of the cracks was very terrifying, and rows of priests fell into the cracks. The irregular closing of the cracks was even more terrifying. Those priests who fell into the cracks disappeared completely, and the cracks on the ground closed tightly. The priests who fell into the cracks also shouted, but those shouts stopped abruptly and disappeared completely the moment the cracks closed. Even if they were lying on the ground, they could not hear any sound, as if they had never been to this world. Small cracks would be squeezed closed, and more large cracks would divide the earth into pieces. Facing the earthquake, the evil god was in pain and helpless. His divine power was good at torturing people's bodies and minds. Facing natural disasters, even the evil god did not know how to deal with it. He glanced painfully at the other evil gods. He thought that the other evil gods were equally helpless. Natural disasters cannot be changed by human power. The evil god Fraud noticed the great druid Neofu, and he hurriedly said, "Insect nest. Deal with the druid first." Before the evil god Insect Nest could react, a fierce lion star fire had already burned towards the insect cloud. A single evil god would be protected by Fraud, but with so many insects, Rudolph did not believe that Fraud had the ability to protect them. The insect cloud was burned to ashes in the lion star fire, forcing the evil god Insect Nest to create insects again. After delaying the evil god Insect Nest, the seraph angel just appeared and encountered the endless abyss falling from the sky. The black abyss covered the entire seraph angel. Before being swallowed by the abyss, Rudolph had to commit suicide to escape. The battle situation was the same as Fraud expected. The evil god Fraud felt a little unexpected, but it was all within control. The furnace died again. The furnace will become weak after the fourth resurrection, and it will be easier to deal with at that time. Rudolph used death to delay for a few minutes. When he was resurrected for the fourth time, his star power limit had lost a quarter. The wings of the seraph angel drooped a little, unable to maintain fullness. Rudolph was weak in all aspects, and the evil gods finally saw the dawn of hope. After Rudolph was resurrected, he did not rush to attack, but waited for a few seconds. Here it comes. In the south, in the direction of the Eagle's Beak Peninsula, there was an earth-shaking explosion. No one has ever seen what it looks like when thousands of nuclear bombs explode in one province. Even the evil gods who have existed for thousands of years have never seen or imagined such a scene. The Eagle's Beak Peninsula, from the southernmost city of Dani to the middle city of Belfort and then to the northern city of Malin, is a peninsula of more than 300 kilometers long, and there are exploding nuclear bombs everywhere. The Eagle's Beak Peninsula is only more than 50 kilometers from east to west. In the east-west direction, 4 nuclear bombs are enough to bomb from the west coast to the east coast. In the north-south direction, it is even possible to throw a row of nuclear bombs every 2 kilometers. This is a thorough nuclear bomb washing, not sparing every inch of land in the Eagle's Beak Peninsula. There is a super earthquake under the ground, and there are thousands of nuclear bombs on the ground. Rudolph stood on the head of the seraph angel and looked at all the evil gods. The white devil on the pyramid, the oblivion behind the abyss, the insect nest in the insect cloud, the distress in the crater, the pain in the pus swamp, and the woman who took off all the disguises and stood on the head of the alligator turtle, fraud. Destruction, start with the evil god cult. The evil gods finally knew what Rudolph was going to do. He didn't want to stop the evil god cult here at the trapped iron wall, but wanted to destroy the evil god cult, or to say, destroy the Eagle's Beak Peninsula under the control of the evil god cult. The terrifying mushroom cloud was like a mushroom culture box, densely packed, growing wildly on the Eagle's Beak Peninsula. The explosion was from top to bottom, and the earthquake was from bottom to top, destroying the temple, the city, the suburbs, and the farmland. The explosion of the alchemical nuclear bomb further stimulated the underground plate of the Eagle's Beak Peninsula, triggering a more terrible earthquake. Furnace. Are you a demon? Millions of priests and believers. Are you going to kill so many people? The fraud who knew the purpose of the furnace finally felt out of control. Kill the furnace. The evil gods rushed forward, and even the evil god Pain could not stay in the back to control the faith. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Weird Star Witch. Author, White Silver Black Iron. Chapter 817. Faced with the overwhelming number of evil gods, Rudolph was not panicked. The first accident he was waiting for was coming. The battle on the Eagle's Beak Peninsula was earth-shattering, and even the tragic situation of alchemical nuclear bombs washing the ground appeared. Evelyn City, far to the north, was also shaken. Hermes looked at the ruins of Evelyn City after the nuclear bomb explosion in shock. It was empty here. But where is the power of destruction? Megwin and Melis looked at the city with deep soil exposed in the center and only broken walls and ruins left in the suburbs. Both of them showed panic on their faces. Evelyn City has been completely destroyed, but where is the power of destruction? A knight suddenly rushed over. He was a duke of the Megwin Empire. Your Majesty. In order to prevent the impact of radiation, we waited for several hours after the explosion before entering here. There is no one in the shelter. No corpse. There is not even a trace of the corpse being vaporized. Hermes' eyelids trembled. There is no one in the shelter? The city was destroyed, but there were no hundreds of thousands of deaths. How could destruction occur without a large number of deaths? At this moment, a special convoy was running wildly dozens of kilometers away from Evelyn City. No one could have imagined that Nicholas had created a huge convoy of trucks in a short time. The furnace told Nicholas that as long as he held the parchment scroll, no one would know what he was doing. Fraud would not pay attention to him deliberately, because the furnace would attract all eyes. In the carriages of the trucks, there were citizens and refugees hiding in the shelters. According to the furnace's idea, the worst outcome of the war was that Evelyn City was completely destroyed. But there was hope if there were people, and if enough people could be saved, it would be the greatest victory. Before dropping the bomb, the knights retreated to avoid being injured by the nuclear radiation of the nuclear bomb, which gave Nicholas the opportunity to execute the plan, and he seized this opportunity. Nicholas sat in the co-pilot and looked at his masterpiece with satisfaction. The speed was 90 miles per hour, and the mood was so comfortable. The performance of this alchemical truck was very good. He took out a notebook and began to calculate a problem. The speed displayed is 90 kilometers per hour. Why did it only run 30 kilometers in half an hour? Where did the remaining 15 kilometers go? Is it a problem with the speedometer or the dashboard? Or is the average speed far less than 90 miles? Writing and drawing, he did not get the answer in the notebook. Confused, Nicholas took out parchment and began to compare the parchment to solve the problem. Compared with Evelyn City, the destruction of Eagle's Beak Peninsula was not unexpected, and the destruction was quite thorough. The howl of the white wolf resounded through the starry sky, and the whole Eagle's Beak Peninsula was reverberating with wolf howls. As the authority originally belonging to the werewolf, the power of destruction is more sensitive to the power of the werewolf. When Yvonne heard the echo of her wolf howl, the echo brought the power of destruction. It was a puff of grey smoke. Just like the grey smoke stirred up after the wall collapsed. Just like the last wisp of grey smoke after the wood was burned out. Just like the grey smoke of mushroom clouds on the Eagle's Beak Peninsula. Just like the last filthy grey smoke exhaled after a person dies. The echo of the wolf's howl rippled in front of the white wolf, and a cloud of grey smoke appeared in front of the white wolf with the sound waves. The embodiment of the power of war is a kite shield, the embodiment of the power of omniscience is a sheepskin scroll, and the embodiment of the power of destruction is this light cloud of grey smoke. The white wolf opened its mouth without hesitation and bit the grey smoke and the power of destruction. At this moment, the evil god Annihilation suddenly abandoned Rudolph and rushed towards the white wolf. The evil god Annihilation had always planned to grab the power of destruction, but he didn't expect that the power of destruction would be so close to him. Unable to maintain the majesty of the evil god Annihilation dispersed the abyss, revealing 12 tentacles and the eyeball in the middle of the 12 tentacles. The pupil of the eyeball bulged, a pair of arms opened the vertical pupil, and a figure drilled out of the pupil. This is the true appearance of the evil god Annihilation. The evil god was also an apostle and a human at the beginning. This man had a big mouth that stretched to his ears. There was no tongue in his big mouth, only a pitch black hole. Yan Mai stared at the grey smoke, that was the power of destruction that he had always dreamed of. Not only that, a special starlight suddenly lit up in the night sky. This starlight came from Mars. Mars, as a very bright celestial body in the starry sky, suddenly shone. It illuminated this area. Ptolemy. The nightmare of all level 9 apostles in the northern continent for 2000 years, the Lord of Mars Ptolemy has arrived. Every time power appears, Ptolemy will inevitably appear to rob. The evil god Enmai is just a clown. In this battle, Ptolemy is the protagonist. Rudolph stared at the starlight from Mars and immediately waved his hand to summon his strongest puppet. Word Spirit Larry, a level 9 miracle word spirit. Larry has no fighting power, but only Larry can play a key role in a fight of this level. After the appearance of the word Spirit Larry, his momentum changed, and he instantly used the forbidden spell divination. God said there must be light. This strangely named forbidden spell represents the most powerful ability of the word Spirit of Miracles. Within 3 seconds, the word Spirit of Miracles is the real God of this world. The Spirit of God said that the time for White Wolf Yvonne is accelerating, and White Wolf Yvonne will gain the power of destruction. The white wolf's originally slow biting action was completed instantly after being blessed by the forbidden spell of the word Spirit of Miracles. Rudolph did not use the forbidden spell of miracles to fight Ptolemy. He was afraid that Ptolemy, who was a level 10 immortal, would not be afraid of the influence of the forbidden spell of level 9. But using the forbidden spell on Ivan would be foolproof. Ivan would definitely get the help of the forbidden spell of miracles. Ptolemy, who had just reached hundreds of meters in the air, turned his head and glanced at Rudolph. Scorpio Wizard, another Scorpio Wizard. Furnace. You used the puppet of the word Spirit to help your woman. What will you do? Fraud tried to guide Ptolemy to attack the furnace. In the plan of the Pillar of Creation, the power of destruction that should have appeared in Evelyn City actually appeared in the Eagle's Beak Peninsula, which caused Ptolemy to be slightly slower by half a second. Ptolemy did not attack Rudolph as Fraud expected, but attacked the white wolf in anger. For a long time, Ptolemy never allowed others to gain power. The sparks in the sky were completely different from the scale of Rudolph's sparks. However, the forbidden spell of the miracle word Spirit allowed the white wolf Ivan to complete the last step. The air suddenly stopped, and everything around the white wolf solidified instantly. Even the sparks sprayed at the white wolf turned into solidified flames. The blue flames were like blue sculptures, and the conduction of heat was suspended. In a flash, gray smoke appeared around the white wolf. The trapped iron wall nailed to the northern end of the Eagle's Beak Peninsula, the artifact trapped by the evil god, was shattered at this moment. The so-called artifact of the evil god cult was fragile in the face of the power of destruction. The huge gray smoke spread all around, and everything touched by the gray smoke would be instantly shattered into gray smoke and added to the gray smoke emitted by the white wolf. The evil god Annihilation was too close to the white wolf, and was swept by the gray smoke and fell directly, making him the first evil god to fall in this war. From beginning to end, the white wolf did not look at the evil god Annihilation. Rudolph said that other people or evil gods were irrelevant, only Ptolemy and Fraud would cause them trouble. White wolf exhaled towards the sparks. This breath looked like a light gray smoke, but the solidified sparks were annihilated quickly after encountering the breath, disappearing and turning into light blue smoke. Destruction motto: everything will be annihilated. Lord of Neptune. Master of the power of destruction. Ivan has mastered the power of destruction, enough to fight against the Lord of Mars. Rudolph retracted his worried gaze. Ivan, you have become one of the most powerful people in this world, no longer the little girl following behind Rudolph. The other evil gods were guided by Fraud and surrounded Rudolph. Fraud glanced at Ptolemy, who was dealing with White Wolf, and suddenly found that this was a great opportunity. Ptolemy was held back by the Lord of Neptune. If he tried to seize a certain power at this time, wouldn't Ptolemy have no time to interfere? He looked at the furnace with a fiery look. Omniscient power. He wants the omniscient power of the furnace. It will end the day after tomorrow, and I am a little reluctant. Weird Star Witch. Author, White Silver Black Iron. Chapter 818. Fraud shows her true form. She is the true goddess of wisdom. Her wisdom makes her temperament outstanding, and her beauty makes her unique. He stared at Rudolph with burning eyes, and Rudolph only felt disgusted. Some women are so beautiful yet so revolting. He put his hand on Larry's shoulder, preparing to take Larry back. The forbidden spell prophecy of the miracle word Spirit can only be used once a day. If you want to use it, you must wait until after sunrise. Before disappearing, Larry suddenly lowered his head and looked in a certain direction. On the ground, Cardinal High Priest Jessica raised his head and looked at the top of Seraph Angel's head. Jessica, the former High Priest of Lehmantown, immediately recognized who the person beside the furnace was. Larry, Kevin's former colleague, they were both ghost hunters in Fabreau City. Jessica has experienced many things and changed many identities, but Kevin's figure has been lingering in her heart for many years. Even though she has now become a cardinal priest of the Hive Church, she has not lost a thing. Kevin's relic, the divination crystal ball. The power of divination in the crystal ball was taken away by the furnace. This was just an ordinary crystal ball. Jessica had been carrying it until now. Lehman Town is where everything started for Jessica. She became a high priest there and also made some achievements there, attracting the attention of the harvest goddess. Jessica saw Larry lower his head and seemed to glance at her. She reached out and took out her black-rimmed glasses, trying to see clearly whether Larry wanted to say something to her. The moment she looked at Larry, Jessica was stunned, as if something entered her mind. Larry is now a level 9 speech spirit with all kinds of strange abilities, but she can't explain what has changed. In an instant, several evil gods surrounded the furnace and the seraph angel, blocking Jessica's sight. The evil god White Demon emitted 6 beams of light. These 6 beams surrounded Rudolph in a tube shape, blocking all of Rudolph's escape directions up, down, left, and right, so that Rudolph could only move forward and backward. The evil god suddenly began to hurt himself in pain. He took out the iron nail inserted in his abdomen and stabbed it hard into his chest. Rudolph's chest felt like a heavy blow, and he saw a bug lying on the evil god's painful shoulder. The evil god's insect nest used insects to collect Rudolph's biological specimens, but Rudolph was completely unaware of it. The evil god of pain completed the curse and the pain connection, and Rudolph lost his ability to resist. Facing the crazy attack of the evil god, Rudolph smiled. Have you felt the sudden decrease in the power of faith? How long can you maintain such a magical attack? The Eagle's Mouth Peninsula contains most of the fortune of the evil god section. After the destruction of the peninsula, the evil gods lost their priests and followers, and the power of faith is no longer endless. This is their final madness. Facing the Mad Dog's desperate counterattack, Rudolph moved his fingers and released his last trump card. Abigail appears next to Rudolph, and she immediately uses uniqueness. The silver snake of illusion can create an illusion, allowing the enemy to be immersed in the illusion forever. This fantasy land is uncanny. The evil god by Mo's expression was no longer ferocious. The bald man was walking on the long steps. At the end of the steps is the authority and light that he wants. This authority does not even belong to the 12 apostles, but is a hidden authority that he imagined and existed in a certain corner. Before, he would have dismissed the idea as a fantasy. Now, some kind of dreamy power makes him really think that he has the authority of light. The evil god is standing in a library with bookshelves that go straight to the roof. Since the evil god's trouble caused the priests to imitate the alchemists, he found that the uniqueness of his craftsman god and the omniscient authority of the alchemists had a certain compatibility. Unfortunately, evil god Deception is also plotting omniscience. Now, he has actually obtained the omniscient authority first. This feeling is really wonderful. Similarly, several evil gods fell into temporary illusions. Facing the crazy attacks of all the evil gods, Abigail released the illusion at the last moment and saved Rudolph. Rudolph searched and suddenly found scenes of illusions without the evil god's deceit. Are you looking for me? Rudolph trembled all over, and the extreme fear made his muscles tighten and his skin twitch. This was not part of the plan. Could the evil god's deception be able to counter the silver snake's uniqueness? After Rudolph turned his head, he discovered a scene that frightened him even more. There was no deception, but Abigail was smiling at him. Abigail, as a puppet, would not laugh without Rudolph's instructions. This smile, just to look like the disgusting goddess of wisdom? Rudolph, have you ever thought about why Abigail, a level 4 silver snake, makes Claude, a level 4 alchemist, and you, a level 4 wizard, helpless? The feeling of powerlessness he felt when Claude died came to Rudolph's heart again. Rudolph suddenly realized an extremely terrifying possibility. Yes, because Abigail is a deceitful priest, a silver snake, and also my priest. Seeing Rudolph's trembling pupils, Abigail smiled and said. Are you wondering why Abigail appeared at that time? Rudolph's horrified look proved that he really wanted to ask this question. Because I have been observing you for a long time, you are too slow to repair the omniscience. If you delay any longer, Ptolemy will take action again. I must give you a little stimulation, so that you can go to the southern continent as soon as possible and collect the relics as soon as possible. Abigail smiled very charmingly, her red lips opened and closed, revealing the pink tongue inside. Just like a snapping turtle opened its ugly big mouth, revealing the tongue disguised as a woman inside. Nothing can stimulate you more than killing Claude. Claude is the only reason you stay in that broken Fabreau city, and he was also your biggest backer at the time. Abigail stretched out her hand and wiped away the sweat on Rudolph's temple with her perfumed fingers. Do you feel the pleasure of deception? My little cutie. Your trump card is also my trump card. I have studied Mercury for hundreds of years, and I know all his tricks. When I learned that you are a Scorpio wizard, you have already lost. Abigail's hand slid down from the temple to Rudolph's cheek, earlobe, neck, shoulder, and chest. Finally, she reached into Rudolph's arms and moved down along the ribs. Rudolph's clothes were torn in an instant, without delaying Abigail's actions. Before losing consciousness and falling into illusion, his eyes became cold. It turned out that Claude's death was because of him, because of fraud, and because of omniscience. When he was still a level 4 wizard, how could he fight against the evil god? Or the most cunning fraud among the evil gods? Rudolph saw Abigail take out a dagger and pierce his throat. He died, and he died after his throat was pierced by the dagger. He had planned the final battle for so long, but failed miserably. Except for making Ivan the Lord of Neptune, the core plan failed. He came back to life, and Abigail had a match in her hand, and he came back to life in the flame of the match. However, this time he did not get rid of the negative state because of his rebirth from the fire, but was killed and resurrected by Abigail again and again. In the end, he died completely. His soul floated to the starry sky, just like when he traveled through time, his soul came from the starry sky. Can I go back? Can I go back to the past? Can I go back to my previous world? Abigail saw that Rudolph's expression was becoming more and more dreamy and expectant, and she didn't know what kind of illusion he had experienced. Although he had spiritual omniscience, the furnace was always covered with a layer of fog in front of him. I don't know what's so special about the furnace. He has never explored the thoughts of the furnace, and I don't know what the furnace is thinking. Be careful, my little cutie, the illusion is in effect, you have to hand over the other half of the omniscience authority. Abigail's illusion completely overwhelmed Rudolph's consciousness. In Rudolph's consciousness, he shuttled through the dark universe and then stopped somewhere. He seemed to be standing on the moon and saw the blue planet. He was obsessed, motionless, and lost his ability to react. Just when Fraud thought everything was going well, Abigail's face showed surprise. Where is the omniscience authority? Where is the omniscience scroll? After a brief panic, Fraud quickly issued a new order. Furnace, hand over the omniscience scroll. Rudolph was like a puppet. In his consciousness, he had returned to the past, returned to school, returned to the library, and showed off to his lover that he had a very awesome and long dream last night. His girlfriend whispered to him for the omniscience scroll, saying that if she had the omniscience scroll, she wouldn't have to prepare for the postgraduate entrance examination so hard. Rudolph said hurriedly. The scroll of omniscience is not with me, but I can take you there. Abigail saw Rudolph suddenly reach out and hold her hand. Do you want the scroll of omniscience? I'll get it for you. Let's go. I'll take you to find the omniscience authority. The next second, the seraph and Rudolph suddenly disappeared. The evil god Fraud also disappeared like Rudolph. On the outskirts of Evelyn City, Nicholas pulled down a periscope from the top of the carriage and looked behind through the periscope. Oh! My God! I've stirred up a hornet's nest. The midnight nights are crazy. They're catching up. In his hand, he held a parchment scroll. In a hurry, Nicholas opened the parchment scroll. Excuse me, how to defeat the level 9 Night Emperor and his royal midnight knights. The all-knowing omniscience, according to your strength, this is nothing but a foolish dream. I am good at giving answers, but I can't help you make wishes. Nicholas was furious. You are also considered a level 10 authority? Tell me, what is the difference between you and waste paper? One person and one scroll, arguing on the parchment. How could the omniscience scroll suffer such grievances? He is a noble eternal authority. Suddenly, the star-condensed dragon scale in Nicholas's arms lit up. The Savior is here. We still have to rely on the furnace. Breaking the authority is not enough. Weird Star Witch. Author, White Silver Black Iron. Chapter 819. The front windshield of the truck shattered, and the glass shards collided, making a crisp ding-ding sound. Two people appeared on the front hood of the truck. Nicholas saw the furnace and two women. One woman was unfamiliar, wearing a translucent black veil. But the other woman, Nicholas had clearly seen it before. It was the statue of the evil god Fraud, which looked like the statue of the goddess of wisdom. The furnace did not notice him, but just stared at the woman in black veil with a blurred look. The evil god Fraud stared straight at the scroll of omniscience in Nicholas's hand, which made Nicholas feel bad. No, the furnace was not only not here to help him, but also brought a big trouble. The next second, Fraud reached out to grab the scroll. Nicholas' heart tightened, and he hurriedly grabbed the scroll of omniscience, but for some reason, his hands were empty. The scroll that was clearly in his arms, he actually grabbed the wrong one and grabbed the air. Oops! The action of grabbing was deceived. He hadn't warmed up the scroll of omniscience before it was snatched away. After the evil god Fraud got Nicholas' scroll, he immediately stretched out his hand and pierced his forehead with 4 fingers, then tore off a piece of skin from his forehead. Unlike Rudolph, who casually took out the scroll and put it back, the evil god Fraud cherished half of the omniscience scroll so much that she used some method to stick it on her face. The parchment replaced her face skin and completely became a part of her. In this way, she deceived the spiritual omniscience and made the spiritual omniscience mistakenly think that it was part of Fraud. Now this method is no longer needed, and the 2 omniscience scrolls are about to be restored. There is still blood on the half scroll of Fraud, which is her blood. Nicholas' acting skills are not very good. When the omniscience scroll appeared in the hands of the evil god Fraud, he couldn't help but pull the corners of his mouth and smiled. This is his most outstanding alchemical product. Has anyone in history used the power of immortality to make directional thunder? Nicholas has such an opportunity. To the north of the material omniscience scroll, where Fraud can't see, copper wires appear. The hot copper wire exuded terrible energy. With a bang, the truck where Nicholas was the first in the convoy. The directional mine made of the scroll spewed out a terrifying flame in front of the truck. The furnace got all the alchemical and experimental data for Nicholas. This directional mine was a nuclear directional mine. The flames directly devoured the evil god Fraud, Abigail, and Rudolph. Furnace, you must resurrect quickly, otherwise the nuclear radiation will kill the refugees behind. Combining the nuclear explosion with the directional mine, Nicholas was worried that the power was too great and difficult to control. Nicholas was not disappointed. The figure of the furnace disappeared and reappeared in the flames. He waved the bone-eroding scepter, absorbed all the radiation with witchcraft, and threw the scepter at a black shadow. The scepter pierced the black shadow fiercely. Rudolph's figure appeared next to the black shadow. This was the burnt evil god Fraud. At this time, Fraud could no longer see the beautiful appearance of the goddess of wisdom, and only a charred figure remained. The palm and half of the forearm, the sole and half of the calf, all disappeared, and only a thin cone remained at the end of the forearm and calf. The moment when the omniscience authority was restored was the moment when the evil god Fraud was excited, and it was also the moment when she revealed her flaws. There was a crack below the charred head, which should be his mouth, and he was mumbling something. Rudolph's voice returned to normal. Well, let me see, this is medium rare. No matter what Fraud wanted to say at this time, it was useless. Without the beautiful face and the fascinating lies, only the charred remains were left. Rudolph pierced Fraud's head, throat, and chest with the scepter to ensure that Fraud was dead. The evil god Fraud, who had been entangled with Rudolph for a long time, finally died in Rudolph's hands. The front of the first truck was blown up, and Nicholas had to get off the car to evacuate the refugees on the car and let them squeeze into other carriages. Nicholas came to Rudolph and looked at the charred body with him. It's miserable, it's really miserable, is this Fraud? It's not okay. Rudolph looked at Nicholas speechlessly and said, if the evil god Fraud is targeting you, you have 100 lives, but it's not enough for her to play with. Nicholas nodded in agreement. For this last blow, the furnace even gave away something as precious as the scroll of omniscience. He suddenly asked uneasily, I have offended Fraud, what should I do? Is Fraud really dead? Do you think he is faking his death? Some people have such deterrent power. Even if he dies, others think he set up a death trap. Wait and see if the uniqueness appears. Rudolph was not disappointed. Not long after, a card appeared on the reef. Rudolph had obtained a Fraud card before, which was a divine artifact. After knowing that Fraud had the other half of the scroll of omniscience, Rudolph destroyed the card. Now he has obtained another card, but this card is different. This card is the embodiment of Fraud's uniqueness. After picking up the cards, Rudolph was a fraud. At this moment, Rudolph saw an arching dragon appear in the distant sky. With the speed of the arching dragon, it will arrive here soon. Rudolph raised his hand and grabbed some broken parchment in the air. Nicholas shouted in surprise, is this? The last time the omniscient authority was destroyed by the great alchemist Robert, Mercury used this witchcraft to retrieve half of the omniscient scroll from the void. Without any hesitation, Rudolph pushed all the fragments of the omniscient scroll towards Nicholas. Nicholas instinctively raised his hand and caught a fragment of the scroll. Nicholas, the omniscient authority originally belonged to the alchemist, restore the omniscient authority quickly. Nicholas actually didn't have that much desire for omniscient authority. If it hadn't been for the war, he would have been very satisfied with his scientific research life. He thought the furnace would assume omniscient authority. But why? This is so precious. I don't have time now, I will explain later. After getting the omniscient authority, you will naturally know why I do this. A group of people jumped down from the Gongji Tianlong, including Mogwen 9 and his 9 royal attendant knights, and another person was the Ares wizard Melis. Mogwen 9 swung his sword towards the furnace without hesitation. This is Rudolph's fifth resurrection after returning to the past. The previous resurrections in the illusion were all fake. Rudolph became weak, but Mogwen 9's sword cut through the air inexplicably. Ever since he became a level 1 knight, Mogwen 9 has never killed anything in the air. He looked at the furnace in surprise, wondering how the furnace did it. He was stunned for a moment, and after thinking about it, he realized that the furnace had not escaped, but that when he drew his sword, he had already cut it crookedly. Fraud? Furnace, you killed Fraud. While Melis was watching, he immediately saw the cause of the anomaly. The ability that the furnace just showed was more like Fraud. Rudolph said nothing, just buying time for Nicholas, who was behind. Omniscient authority appeared more than 200 years ago, but it has always been incomplete. When Nicholas got all the fragments, he instinctively knew how to completely restore the omniscient scroll. The scroll contained information left by the great alchemist Robert to subsequent alchemists. Only the power of alchemy can make this information emerge. The unknown, Only the unknown can control the known. Only by constantly exploring the unknown can we expand the known. Nicholas recalled the questions he had not yet understood one by one and wrote them with his fingers. Alchemists continue to make breakthroughs in mathematics, physics, chemistry, and many other aspects, expanding the boundaries of human cognition. This is the most important exploration of the unknown. The scroll fragments continued to gather at Nicholas's fingertips, and were restored piece by piece. As for the last unknown question, Nicholas couldn't help but write, "Why did Mr. Furnace give me omniscient authority?" The omniscient scroll was completely restored, and a few lines of words appeared on it. The omniscience and omniscience, the authority that belongs to the wizard, is called accident. By causing accidents in the three events of eternal life authority, the wizard will gain unexpected authority and become the Lord of Uranus. Nicholas suddenly understood. Logically speaking, the first eternal Ptolemy would use his crushing advantage to obtain all subsequent eternal authority. There was an accident in the ownership of the power of destruction, and the white wolf Ivan unexpectedly obtained the power of destruction. An accident occurred with omniscient authority, and Nicholas unexpectedly obtained omniscient authority. With just one last surprise left, the forge can become the Lord of Uranus. Rudolph suddenly turned his head and looked at Nicholas. Nicholas nodded, indicating that he had become the Lord of Jupiter, housing the omniscient authority. Then Nicholas saw the furnace disappear into the starlight. What? Nicholas was confused. What? I just nodded, I mean my work is done. Why did you leave the furnace? What does this mean? Nicholas looked at Mogwen 9 and the Ares wizard Melis opposite, and his palms became sweaty. If you have something to say, please tell me. I'm just a scientific research worker in a laboratory. Although I have become the Lord of Jupiter. Nicholas suddenly realized something. That's not right, I am now level 10 immortal and omniscient. Why should I be afraid of you two? Wait for me. Give me a minute. Nicholas took out the scroll and started asking, how to kill the level 9 Knight Emperor and the level 9 Ares Wizard at the same time. Omniscient, you have 4 ways. The first kind. Nicholas was very angry when he heard that there were only 4 ways. Wait. Are you kidding? Only 4 types? Are you sure there are not 2 missing zeros? Not 400 kinds? Even 40 kinds? I thought eternal life was so powerful, but it was disappointing. Omniscient and omniscient, what you want is to kill simultaneously, which is indeed a little difficult. However, there are 112 ways to kill them one after another. Don't explain, it's a spoiler. No wonder the furnace doesn't want you, you're really useless. Seeing the quarrel between the Lord of Jupiter and the omniscient authority, Mergwin withdrew his knight's sword and Melis lowered his staff. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Weird Star Witch. Author, White Silver Black Iron. Chapter 820. Cooper, aren't you done yet? Rudolph appeared again on the Eagle's Beak Peninsula, already in the center of Malone City. It is said that the center of Malong has been razed to the ground long ago. How can it be so easy to advance to level 9? The level 9 uniqueness of the living corpse is called the ghost realm. In a land full of dead souls, create a realm full of ghosts. Rudolph looked in the direction of the trapped iron wall, where there was still an earth-shattering battle. The authority of the god of war and the authority of destruction, this is the first head-on collision of the authority of eternal life. While Cooper was setting up the ghost realm, he asked, isn't the power of destruction already belonging to Ivan? Why hasn't Ptolemy let Ivan go? Why, Ivan, who can still fight, spit out the power of destruction? It's not that Ptolemy doesn't let Ivan go, it's that Ivan doesn't let Ptolemy go, Rudolph said. Ivan is immortal and will not die. She is holding back Ptolemy so that he has no time to care about authority elsewhere. After seeing that there was no problem here, Rudolph disappeared and flew towards Belfort City. After thousands of alchemical nuclear bombs washed away the land, not a single blade of grass grew on the Eagle Beak Peninsula. Not only that, the violent earthquake turned up the soil underneath, completely changing the topography here. It turned out that everything on the ground had disappeared completely, and the ground seemed to have been plowed. In the center of the original site of Belfort City, a huge swarm of insects hovered. The insect swarm covered the starry sky, and the evil god insect nest actually left the battlefield and appeared here. The insect corpses continued to fall, and soon a thick layer was spread on the ground. The intense nuclear radiation makes it impossible for evil insects to survive for long. The Eagle's Mouth Peninsula has become a dead place. In the next 10 or even decades, this place will become a restricted area for life due to alchemical nuclear radiation. Therefore, this place became a paradise of silence. In the place shrouded by the swarm of insects, the evil god's insect nest is waiting for the manifestation of the power of silence. Withered authority, the flower of life blooming on the absolutely dead ground. There is a section of dead branches in Belfort City that has not been destroyed. This section of dead branches is lying on the ground, as long as a forearm, and the whole body is charred. The evil god, insect hive, stood in front of the dead branches. Behind him, the Pope and 3 cardinal priests of the insect hive church were kneeling. Among the 3 cardinal priests, only Jessica occasionally raised her head slightly and looked at the dead branch close to the ground. Is that the authority of silence? Jessica didn't understand that the destruction of the Eagle's Beak Peninsula was led by the furnace. Now, should something as important as the authority of withering silence be left to the harvest goddess? The evil god insect nest turned its head, looked at the top of Jessica's head, and said displeasedly, "Cardinal priest Jessica, what are you thinking about?" Jessica suddenly broke out in cold sweat, and she hurriedly said, "Almighty harvest goddess. I don't." After a moment, she realized that she could not deceive the evil god hive. If she lied, the power of faith in her body would burn her to death in the next moment. "Almighty harvest goddess, I'm worried about the furnace. Authority is so precious. Will the furnace do anything?" At this moment, a crisp eagle cry suddenly sounded in the sky. The great druid Niafu also escaped from the battlefield at the Iron Wall and went deep into the Eagle's Beak Peninsula. After seeing Archdruid Niaf, the evil god hive quickly turned around, unable to wait any longer. It was about to seize the incomplete authority of Wither. The authority of dryness has not yet completely appeared, and the dead branches are not yet complete. The swarm of insects rose into the sky and headed straight for Niaf. Niaf waved her hand to create a hurricane, sweeping away the cloud of insects. Just as the swarm of insects was delaying Niaf, the evil god's insect nest, which was closer to the authority of Kyuji, had already reached out to grab the authority of Kyuji. However, Jessica suddenly rushed out. Jessica's consciousness was blurred, and her actions at this time were beyond her control. Talking Larry. Jessica thought of the look Larry the Yanling gave him. Unconsciously, she got a prophecy about herself. By delaying the evil god's insect nest, she would have the only chance to survive. Therefore, at this time, Jessica risked being executed by the evil god's insect nest and crashed into the evil god's insect nest. The Pope and other cardinal priests had no idea how to face such a situation, because no priest had ever offended the Lord. The insect nest didn't even turn around, and a brood evil insect pounced on Jessica. However, the evil insect failed to bite Jessica at such a close distance. Fraud. Of course, the insect nest knew what this method was. The deception deceived the evil insect, causing the evil insect to bite in the wrong direction. The arm of the evil god's insect nest was hit by Jessica, and his consciousness suddenly fell into a trance. When he woke up, he found that his back was facing the authority of Wither and Silence. Deceit, aren't you seeking the power of omniscience? Do you also want the power of silence? Hive is unwilling to fight against deception because it knows how difficult it is to deal with deception. When the insect nest turned around, he found a person standing next to Jessica. The furnace. Why is it you? Rudolph was looking down at the power of silence, preparing to play a prank. You can call me a melting pot, or you can call me a fraud, it's just a code name. Fraud, did you kill the forge? How could the furnace survive after I laid it out for so long? The insect's hive was relieved. The furnace was the great enemy of the cult of evil. The insect's hive was happy to hear that he was dead. Deceit, you don't need the authority of silence, right? We agreed that the authority of silence that belongs to the druid belongs to me. Of course, I'm just here to guard against the great druid Neof. Come on, insect nest. Zhongqiao shook his head, you always like to play pranks. Even if you come to help me, you have to tease me first. Also, don't turn my cardinal priest into your fraud priest again. Zhongqiao let Jessica aside. He had already seen that Jessica was also a fraud priest now. Looking up at the approaching archdruid Neofu, Zhongqiao hurriedly walked towards the power of destruction. At this moment, several finger fires pierced through Zhongqiao's forehead, throat, and heart. Zhongqiao's eyes trembled. His intuition told him that the person beside him was not a fraud, but a furnace. For some reason, the fraud who played with people's hearts died in the hands of the furnace. The body of the evil god Zhongqiao suddenly disintegrated into spiders the size of finger joints, drilled into the ground, and quickly disappeared. Rudolph glanced at the ground and ignored them. The evil god Zhongqiao would not die so easily. Neofu landed and took up the power of withering and silence. Withered and lonely motto, the flower of life will eventually bloom in the withered and lonely land. After the withered branch touched Neof's hand, it sprouted a bud under the natural force of the druid. The bud grew quickly and turned into a beautiful blue flower. Neof officially became the Lord of Ceres and obtained the power of withered and lonely. Rudolph smiled and finished. 3 power accidents were completed. Above the sky, rumbling sounds rushed behind the smoke and clouds. The smoke clouds created by the alchemical nuclear bomb were broken by the terrifying blue flames. Ptolemy appeared in the sky. Ptolemy looked down at the ground and stared at the power of withered and lonely. That night, he missed the manifestation of power 3 times in a row. A cloud of grey smoke appeared after Ptolemy, and the grey smoke fell to the ground and stopped beside Rudolph. Sorry, Rudolph, Ptolemy is too strong, I can't hold him for too long. It's okay, it's over. Jessica was excited. She stood behind several people and found something shocking. Ivan, the Lord of Neptune, and Neof, the Lord of Ceres, the 2 immortals stood on both sides of the furnace. The 9th level Scorpio wizard furnace seemed to be the leader of the 2 immortals. Weird Star Witch. Author, White Silver Black Iron. Chapter 821. Ptolemy had the best fighting power in the world, but he failed tonight. He looked at Ivan, the Lord of Neptune. After mastering the power of destruction, the werewolf was very powerful. Ptolemy could only suppress the Lord of Neptune, but he could not defeat him in a short time. The appearance of the Lord of Neptune caused Ptolemy to have no chance to attack tonight. Now, even the power of withering and solitude has a master, and the druid has obtained the power that belongs to him. Ptolemy's sight finally fell on the furnace. In the final analysis, all accidents come from the furnace. Raising his finger, Ptolemy pointed to the furnace. For a long time, Rudolph used shooting finger fire as his main means of attack. He certainly knew what the scene meant. A copper coin appeared at Rudolph's fingertips. The copper coin turned over, from the front to the back. In fact, both sides were smooth copper surfaces, which looked the same and very confusing. The next moment, the shooting finger fire suddenly exploded at Ptolemy's fingertips, blowing off one of his fingers. The immortal Ptolemy's fingers were recovering quickly, and he looked at them in confusion. Rudolph had a bright smile on his face. Ptolemy, you are an old wizard who lived more than 2,000 years ago. Have you ever heard that the alchemist's bullets would go off accidentally? Look, your shooting finger also went off accidentally. Accident? Ptolemy looked at Rudolph in confusion. One of the reasons why he kept interfering with the ownership of the power of immortality was that he wanted to obtain the power that originally belonged to the wizard. Accident. Rudolph nodded. Accidental motto, everything has accidents. Rudolph created accidents for the ownership of 3 powers. He is now an accident, the Lord of Uranus. His immortality is based on accidents. As long as there are accidents in this world, he will always exist. The copper coin kept rolling on the back of Rudolph's finger. This copper coin is called the accidental copper coin, which is the embodiment of the power of accidents. Every time the copper coin flips, it means that there is an accident in the development of something. Just now, the copper coin rolled on the back of the finger a few times, and I don't know which unlucky people encountered setbacks. Ptolemy, I know you are strong, but you have to know that the success rate of anything is not 100%, and anything may happen unexpectedly. As long as I exist, then, anything you want to do is not 100% sure. Think about it, isn't it very uncomfortable? Ptolemy's eyelid muscles twitched, he waved his hand, and 3 huge meteorites fell from the sky. Rudolph had no fear of the Lord of Mars. Everyone was immortal, so who was worse than who? The unexpected copper coin flipped again. 3 meteorites fell with a bang. Rudolph not only did not take any measures, but also said to Ivan, "It's okay, there's no need to hide." Under Ptolemy's gaze, right in front of Ptolemy's eyes, the attack of the meteorite was unexpected. After the meteorite hit the ground, the 3 meteorites shattered, and the broken fragments collided with each other, forming a triangular support above the heads of Rudolph and the other 2. Jessica, who was closest to Rudolph, did not suffer much damage. The insects of the evil god's nest were all destroyed by meteorites and flames, and the Pope of the Harvest Church was killed by meteorites. Rudolph and his men under the triangle support were unscathed, only suffering from some heat. For the 3 immortals, this little bit of baking was nothing. Ptolemy finally realized the problem. There is no difference in the power of immortals. His war power cannot gain an absolute advantage over the power of destruction and the power of accidents. He can win today, but it will be extremely difficult. Even if he wins, the 3 immortals in front of him will not suffer much loss. Ptolemy's face was very ugly. He suddenly disappeared, turned into starlight, and flew towards the direction of Mars. Rudolph shook his head, a little regretful. Ptolemy was straightforward. When he saw that he could not get any good results, he left immediately. Rudolph turned his head and looked in the direction of the evil god's nest. The evil god's nest hid far away, and when he saw the look of the furnace, his heart suddenly tightened. Her expression suddenly froze, and she looked towards the south in astonishment. The southern continent has her temple, her believers, and her divine power foundation. However, she was unable to cancel the descent of her true body and return to the temple on the southern continent. Did something unexpected happen? Rudolph smiled. Can't I return to the temple? The evil god's nest looked at Rudolph in astonishment. Is this the power of accident? Rudolph kindly explained to the evil god's nest. Uranus is a strange planet. Relative to the orbital plane of the galaxy, its rotation axis is not vertical, but horizontal. This makes it the only planet lying horizontally, with the North Pole pointing to the Sun and the South Pole pointing to the void of the universe. Accidents. Uranus is full of accidents that are different from other planets. You want to go back to the southern continent, but it's too late. Fraud is dead, it's your turn now. Jessica suddenly trembled all over, and the 3 immortals took action against the goddess of harvest. The grey smoke of destruction, the dry cracks of loneliness, and the unexpected blockage. The evil god's nest completely disappeared, her body was destroyed and turned into black debris. These debris finally condensed in front of Rudolph and turned into a black spider. Jessica saw the furnace turn around and walk towards her. Rudolph said, "Take this spider, which is the unique embodiment of the evil god's nest. Return to the southern continent and spread a prophecy in the southern continent. The Lord of Uranus will destroy all the temples and shrines in the southern continent and end the rule of the evil god. From today on, you are the evil god's nest. You are very smart, I think you know what you should and shouldn't do." The black spider jumped onto Jessica's forehead, 8 limbs pierced into her forehead, and the divine power entered her body. "I understand, I will dismiss the believers, let them get rid of their faith, and no longer develop new priests." Rudolph nodded. It was Jessica. She knew what Rudolph wanted. This was his backup plan. If he wanted to completely change the southern continent, it would be best to place one of his own in the evil god cult. Killing the evil god was not difficult for him. What was difficult was to guide the faith of tens of millions of people. Jessica turned her head and looked south, toward the southern continent, cancelled her true body's descent, and turned into the power of faith and disintegrated. When she appeared again, she was already in the temple of the Harvest Church in the southern continent. When Rudolph and the other two returned to the location of the trapped iron wall, they saw a messy battlefield. The battle between Ptolemy and Ivan was a battle between the power of war and the power of destruction. Under Ivan's care, the constitutional army hid far away early. Joel came up and asked, "Furnace consultant? What are you doing? Formally introduce yourself." "Ivan, the Lord of Neptune who controls the power of destruction." "Neoph, the Lord of Ceres who controls the power of desolation." "I, the Lord of Uranus who controls the power of the unexpected." Faced with 3 immortals, Joel didn't know what to do for a moment. Rudolph remembered another thing and said, "Also, Nicholas, the former 9th-level alchemist of Kanta has now become the Lord of Jupiter who controls the omniscience. Congratulations, Joel, the authority of your alchemists has returned to the hands of alchemists." Joel stood there for a long time, and it took him some time to accept so much information. The Battle of the Eagle's Beak Peninsula, a great war led by the Crucible, ushered in a jaw-dropping ending. The 3 evil gods fell, including the annihilation of the evil god, the evil god's hive and the evil god's fraud. The Eagle's Beak Peninsula was turned into the Eagle's Beak Islands, and earthquakes and alchemical nuclear bombs plowed the earth, and sea water filled these gaps. Elba won a great victory, and there was no threat from the southern continent from then on. And this battle also gave birth to 4 immortals. Rudolph the Crucible officially became the biggest troublemaker under the starry sky. Everything has its surprises. In this world, as long as Rudolph disagrees with something, there will be accidents.